Welcome to another episode of the Couples Academy Show.
Wait, what's going on?
There's a delay on my screen.
Oh, there it is.
Today we're talking about emotionally charged friendships.
On the Couples Academy Show.
On the Couples Academy Show. Technology. You gotta love it.
You gotta love it. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. If this is your first time tuning in, because we're on different platforms, my name is Hassani.
I'm Danielle.
And we're the co-founders of Couples Academy. And every single morning we come to you for about 30 to 40 minutes to unpack some information that will really enhance your relationship. And we are in a series that's pretty much brand new. It's Overcoming Infidelity Complexities. And we're talking about all the challenges associated with an affair and what to do about that. So we're in a topic today. You've heard us talk about this on and on, but now we kind of want to go into the depths of it. We're talking about friendships. You know, there's so many books, so many articles and videos that would suggest that friendships can be problematic to your marriage. It can create a vulnerability in your relationship if you don't have clear boundaries in that relationship. And, you know, based upon all the conversations we have, we know that the number one question that single people struggle with is, can men and women really just be friends?
Yeah.
And we realize that when people get married, the number one question that married couples struggle with is, can men and women really just be friends? It's the same question because there's been no clarity and couples typically don't have that conversation. There are assumptions that are being made. There are just beliefs that you carry in that have never been discussed. And then all of a sudden, crisis happens. And of this whole, well, you should have known that. And it was common sense. And I can't believe, well, we're all trained different. We're raised different. We have different relational codes of ethics. And that's what causes problems in relationships.
Yeah. Well, your spouse should be your friend. And the reality is that that's not the truth for many couples. For many couples, their spouse is the adversary. And so when that occurs, you are looking outside of your marriage for those relationships. And a lot of times also, you're bringing friendships into the marriage that you haven't properly established as couple friends, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm a single woman and I have a whole bunch of guy friends and I get married and I want to drag them along, in normal circumstances, they kind of fall off because in most cases, they really wanted to be more than just friends in the first place. But when they do hang on and you have not brought that friendship into the marriage and they don't become friends to you and your spouse, that's where you have a problem.
Right. And I think you just made a good point. You know the truth. Overwhelmingly, those friends, a lot, not all, but a lot of those friends, the reason why men and women are just friends is because there's no mutual attraction. But oftentimes there's one person who's interested in the other, but it's just not reciprocated. And so therefore, by default, they become friends. And so if there is a secret attraction that you know about or past history that you know about, or because of circumstances, it can never be because at the time I was in something, you were in something, but we maintain our friendship. And there's this subtlety, there's this seductiveness, there's this suggestiveness.
You knew it. You knew it from the very beginning. And here's the deal. You appreciated it. You liked the fact that, you know, they were attracted to you. You actually enjoyed the fact that they complimented you and treated you a certain way, but you just weren't attracted to them. For some reason, it was never going to go there. And see, that's the stuff that causes problems. Because now when there's issues in your marriage, you turn to that person later on down the road when you're a little bit more mature, right? Mm-hmm. You turn to that person because they're still feeding the ego.
There it is. And if we're not talking about past friends and past exes, then we're talking about the people that you typically see on a regular basis, people you serve in ministry with, people who you work with, people who you see on a regular basis. Like, for instance, when we get Starbucks every single day, the same person who gives us our coffee in the morning, that's that same person. And then all of a sudden,
right, every time you go to the Starbucks, there she is.
Yep.
You look so nice today. Or there he is. I like your coat. And you know you're showing up to that Starbucks just to hear it.
Right.
See, this
and
is
you
stuff.
will go to the Starbucks way across town,
right.
passing three along the way, just to have a moment of connection. And so that's the thing.
This is what I love about the show. That we're gonna make you keep it real. Right? We're not going to allow you to pretend like you didn't know and you don't know what you're doing. So let's just keep it real. We know that we know that these relationships are inappropriate. We know a lot of times that these friendships are filling in the blanks in our marriage. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there are issues in the marriage. Of course, those are the things that you want to work out. But we know that we've invited an uncomfortable, not natural relationship that's feeding the ego, that's filling in the blank where your spouse should be. Because truthfully, if you were healthy in your marriage, you really wouldn't have room or space for another opposite sex friend. You just wouldn't. It's all consuming of your energy and your time. Right. And then the other thing is that what about your spouse not being able to doesn't know what you're talking about? Right? You're in a relationship. I'm married to you, and I'm like, Hassani, I'll see you later. I'm gonna go call Daryl. You know what I'm saying?
That's a Daryl lie.
Let's see how Daryl's doing today. I'm on the phone with Daryl for 3 hours.
Not never.
You know, I mean, that could be a problem, even if it's the same sex, if it's just a friend, right? If I spend too much time with my best friend, you're gonna get an attitude. Are you still on the phone?
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Let alone opposite sex. And so it's a web of entrapment that you can get caught up in, because the reality is, if you're not where you need to be in your relationship, you will find something in someone else that you're not getting from home. It's called the marital void. I feel empty. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm longing for something I haven't had in a long time, never had. And all of a sudden, this individual who's just a friend can speak to me and touch me, not physically, but touch my heart and touch my mind in ways that you can't. And that's where it begins. And so now there's a pursuit for that connection. And I'll do anything because I'm starving and I'm thirsty and I'm about to break. And if it wasn't for you giving me sanity and a peace of mind and being my friend, yet my therapist, then how could I make it? And so these relationships become the slippery slope and compromise the integrity of the marriage. And so we want to talk about some of these signs. We want to talk about some of the behaviors and characteristics that you want to be mindful of so that you don't go down this path. But before we do that, let's just welcome some of our family: Latasha, Angel, Ann, Jay, JD Pruitt, Stephen, Corliss. Yeah, Kathy, Stephen, good to see you all this morning. Hope that you're enjoying. We want you to share right now. Let your friends know that we're on. We want them to be engaged in this conversation. And if you have comments, we want to hear from you. So anyway, let's talk about some of the things that are challenging when dealing with opposite sex, emotionally charged friendships that can get your relationship in trouble. What do you have? What's number one?
First thing is that if you have topics or conversation that you reserve only for your friend, right? So, there's certain things, and we hear about this all the time, couples that just don't communicate. They have the problem of they don't talk to each other, but they can go turn and talk to someone else. Well, if there are certain topics and things that you just don't share with your spouse and you're only sharing with your same-sex friend, that could be dangerous.
That's very dangerous. And guess what? The reality is you're saving articles, you're saving news, you're saving what you did this weekend, you're saving thoughts that are on your mind. Think like your spouse is in the bed or on the couch right next to you, and it's a perfect opportunity to engage. But for some reason, I don't know, I just don't feel safe and I just don't feel comfortable. And there's just not that intellectual connection, but I have it with James or I have it with Susie. And then you wait and then you rob your spouse of what you two should have by giving it to somebody else. That is a problem and an indication that something's wrong at home that deserves some attention.
Absolutely. Another one is when and this is an obvious one, right? Very common, is that you are sharing spousal difficulties with this friend, right? So you come to work and you can't wait till lunchtime so that you can meet him or her, right? Because y'all just having lunch at work. and tell them all about how terrible your spouse is.
And you know what? Oftentimes it's under the guise of, I need a female's opinion. Because I'm trying to understand what's going on in my household.
Why do you have to say it like that?
I need a female's opinion. I just feel that my male friend will just understand what I'm going through, and we just need to talk. And what happens is, either you're pouring out to somebody who's going through your same situation, which then justifies why you are cold and frigid and shut down and don't open up to your spouse, or there's some subtle interest and let me connect with you so that you can understand my situation. Maybe you can speak into my life.
Right.
And this is why we see when you're in a vulnerable state and you pour out, we can see how when somebody's pouring into you, there are bonds that are formed in that connection. That's why you have pastors who get in trouble with their parishioners, counselors who get in trouble with their patients. We see it all the time. So trainers who get caught up with their customers because of that connection. We're working out, yet we're talking about what's going on. I'm serving you a drink. I'm a bartender, and we're just shooting the breeze, and you're telling me what's going on. And all of at the foundation of all communication is intimacy.
Intimacy.
I'm allowing you to see inside my heart, my mind, my problems, my issues, my faults, and my flaws, and you understand me. Oh my God, you can relate to me in ways that my spouse can't. Man, I wish he was more like you. I wish she was more like you. And that's how that begins to happen. And if we don't put a stop to that, then oftentimes these inappropriate, emotionally charged relationships become full-on emotional and or sexual affairs.
Absolutely. Well, the next one is very similar to that one. It's when the friend is pouring out to you. So what you were similarly explaining, and that is that, you're both exchanging, right? This person's coming to you to tell you, I just want to get your opinion on something. And you become that person. You become the one that gives the advice. And now you're lending your ear and your heart to them. It's very, very similar.
And it's a problem because you can become the ideal representative of what that person's spouse should be just by being innocently giving information. Like, there may be no ill will or no false intention or no seductive agenda on your part. You're just being a friend. Hey, well, maybe you should try this and maybe you should do that, and have you consider that? Now you're pouring into somebody who's an empty vessel.
Right.
And now they have an attraction.
And they don't know what your situation is necessarily. Like, you could be just as empty as them. And so they're coming to you, pouring out your problems. And now you're like, wow, he seems like such a nice guy. And he's being taken advantage of, and I'm being taken advantage of. And one thing leads to the next.
There it is. There it is. Let's go. Let's get it.
So the next one is just anticipating seeing your friend, because your friend brings the sun out for you. Like, this is the person that every time you think about them, you have a lighthearted experience. It's not burdensome. Whereas with your spouse, you see them the two worst times of the day: in the morning when they're rushing, and in the evening when they're exhausted.
That's right.
So you're anticipating seeing this person because you have no ties to them, no responsibilities to them, right? You get to see them 20%. That's the 20%. You're at work, they're making you feel good, they're complimenting you, they're telling you smell good, they're picking up the tab on your lunch. So it's all the feel good stuff, the same stuff that we experienced when we were dating.
Anticipation, another word for that is desire. When you desire someone, long for something, crave for something, reaching towards something that you currently don't have. And a lot of times, to be quite honest, affairs are not just about sex, it's about desirability. And if you find yourself desiring someone other than your spouse, we have an issue on our hands. There's a lot of comments in. We want to go to you so that we can include you in the conversation. What are we talking about? Who do we got?
So we got Angel. She says, question, how can I maintain my friendship with my women friend when hubby don't want me to be friends with her because he believes something is off with her husband? That's interesting. That's an interesting point. I think I respect that point of view. I respect the point of view of your husband saying something ain't right about that husband. So I don't really want you to be around him. So I can respect that. And I think that you could put boundaries in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. I mean, I tell Hassani all the time, like, when I sense something about somebody, hear me.
Oh, I was just telling him that yesterday.
Hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Because I'm not wrong. Because if there's nothing to sense, I just don't sense it. I don't hear nothing. I don't feel nothing. There's just nothing. But there really has never been a time where I encounter somebody and I'm like, that I wasn't right and it didn't come out in the wash. So in the same way, you got to respect that about your husband. There might be something that he's sensing and he could be right. Who knows what it is? But I think that you can still maintain your friendship with her just by setting boundaries. Hey, we're not going to be around your husband. You know, let's go out somewhere. We're not going to be in a situation where I'm ever left alone with your husband, that kind of a thing.
And let me just say, don't allow that to be a point of contention, because a lot of you're just insecure. Something's wrong with you. Ain't nothing wrong. And the reality is, your spouse oftentimes can see what you can't, because a man can sniff out another man's agenda when it's not right. And so can a woman for another woman. And so that's why you have your partner, because they have a perspective you don't have that you need to value in order to move forward.
Let's see what Corliss has to say. She says, I have a friend that used to be a boyfriend when I was much younger. He has been married for 29 years. I have been married for 20 years. He knows there will never be anything else. My husband talks with him. And yes, there has been times I talked with him about our issues. So he can't be my friend.
That's the question. He can't be my friend. Well, here's the deal. You're talking about how your husband speaks to him. Your husband's aware. So this was a boyfriend.
Yeah, back in the day. This is what I'm talking about. You have brought this boyfriend, he could have been a boyfriend when you were a teenager. The point is that you brought him into your marriage. Now, I've seen that turn into trouble too, to be honest. I mean, any situation can turn to trouble if you're about trouble, right? But it sounds like you did the right thing by bringing that friendship into the marriage, and now your husband is friends with him. So I see that as a friend to the couple, but it could be dangerous in a very negative situation where if you're trying to be trifling and sneaking behind the back, things can go on. I mean, we've seen it happen.
And I think the key is not compartmentalizing your friend from your spouse. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. You hold on to these relationships your spouse doesn't know, or they may know, oh yeah, I have a friend, but they don't know the depth of that friendship. They don't know how much you talk, how much you connect. And so even if your spouse is aware that, okay, no big deal, you're friends with your ex, there should still be a healthy interaction that does not become problematic. Because at the end of the day, when you look up the word platonic, a platonic relationship, the definition is problematic within itself, because it means to have an intimate and affectionate relationship with someone void of sex. And so the question becomes, how intimate and how affectionate can you really get with someone without sparks, without feelings, without desirability, without something happening? And so that's why you want to have clear lines of distinction. And here's the deal, Corliss. If it works for you and doesn't work for your husband, it doesn't work for your marriage. If it works for your husband and doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for your marriage. But if it works for you as a couple, then boom, do what you do, because every couple is uniquely different. And what works for your relationship may not work for someone else's.
And we have to play a role too. I mean, there's some self-regulating that needs to take place. You know, if you had any feelings, any residue, any memories, then that would be on you to cut that relationship off. But it sounds like you guys are doing fine. It sounds like it's working for your marriage. We got another question here from Crystal. She says, how do you put a stop to it when your spouse refuses to end the friendship, even though you express explicitly how you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Consequences.
So now we have an issue where he's not willing to comply or honor your wishes as relates to an opposite sex friend that makes you feel uncomfortable. Well, I mean, what we would always encourage is counseling.
Consequences.
Definitely consequences.
Yes.
And you know what? We were Danielle, just yesterday, we were talking about this and how there has to be a punishment and reward system.
I was here even though I wasn't here. That's two.
There it is.
2 points for me.
Built into a marriage, because if a person continues to do something and there is no consequence, you're teaching them that what they're doing is okay.
That's right. So
screaming and yelling and fussing and fighting and all of that, okay, that's gonna last for 3 days and then you'll be back to normal.
Right.
So
because they know your pattern. So whatever those consequences are, they need to be some hard pressed, grooved into the sand, immovable consequences that do not move until your situation moves. And that would put the onus on the other side of the table. So that would force them to do something based on your consequences. And I don't know what those things could be, but that's something to think about. What are some hardcore, serious consequences to this that will be immovable until the situation changes?
There it is. We have Lene who says you must cut off all ties to your past that you know present a threat. And that's absolutely right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's absolutely right. And it's funny, man, because even with all the infidelity, all the research that indicates 90% of affairs do not happen with strangers. Okay, fine. You can go on a business trip and meet somebody at the bar and say, listen, one night. You can go on vacation and say, all right, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You could pay for a prostitute because you want to release, whatever the case may be. But overwhelmingly, there is some association, affiliation, familiarity that you have with that person. And so that's why this is such a critical topic to discuss, because if we don't have these boundaries, it increases the probability of something inappropriate happening.
All right, look, we got one more question here. Sandra says, telling your affair partner friend that you don't think they should meet your wife when asked is also a choice. It's a choice to hide opposite sex friendships. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore.
Right. There it is.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about compartmentalizing. And so that's why, let's go back into the list because there's a lot more to talk about.
Okay. Well, the next one is talking about comparisons, right? Which I know you do a lot of talking about, is that, we all have issues. None of us come into the relationship perfect. Every marriage has something, right? But when you get in that space with this friend and you start doing comparison, it's like a false narrative that you're receiving, that there's a perfection on one side and there's an imperfection on one side. And then you start to compare and look on the other side of the fence, thinking that it's greener. Absolutely.
And, at the end of the day, I remember you saying everybody compares. How do you not compare?
Right.
But there's a healthy, just normal comparisons. Oh, he's tall, he's short.
Right.
He's black, he's white. That's a comparison. But when you get caught up in ruminating about a particular person and, all the comparisons and, oh my God, and see, because what happens is when you're not feeling good about your spouse, whoever you're comparing your spouse to somehow becomes so much better,
right?
Because you're looking at that person from a distance. As you mentioned earlier, you're only experiencing 20% of who that person is. You don't know all of who that person is. It's all a mirage until you get a little bit closer. That's why that in-love feeling in most relationships withers and wanes after a period of time, because you see that joker for who they really are. Yes, they were impressive. They put their best foot forward. I saw all of the wonderful things, but then all the other things start creeping in. And in an affair or in an inappropriate relationship, you only see a percentage, which can distort your perception of what's real.
Right. And that comparison, you're reflecting, really, right? Like you're actually saying, oh, wow, I wish I had. I don't have this in a person. I wish he would compliment me like that. Oh, I would, you start looking at all the normal things in a marriage, right? But you just don't like it. Like, wow, he always has cologne on. I wish my husband would wear cologne. I bought him cologne last year and he ain't opened the box, like you just start going on and on and on, and your spouse looks worse and worse and worse. And this idea of a perfect person looks better and better and better, which leads you to the next thing, which is how you begin to fantasize what it would be like to be with this person. And that's when you're getting into some very dangerous waters, because your imagination is powerful. And everything that you've ever done in your life began with imagining it, thinking about it. That's where you ruminate and develop the plans. And next thing you know, your body follows suit. So it's very dangerous.
Very dangerous. And so the reality is you got to guard your mind. You got to guard your eyes, your ears, your mouth. You got to control this thing, because this right here, this is your biggest sexual organ right here. And if somebody else has your mind and has your imagination and has your visualization and all those different things, yeah, you're on a road, a slippery slope down a path that some people just can't, come back from. So I think it's very problematic, and you need to consider that.
And one more point that's scary about the imagination piece is that you thinking about that it's just you, but oftentimes you and this friend, this inappropriate relationship, are on a similar journey, right? So it's not just you that's imagining them. You're both feeling the energy. There's like a synchronicity involved here, right? So when you get together, you can't wait to see each other. You're sharing each other's thoughts and minds and opinions and all these things. And then when you're by yourself, you're imagining and they're imagining.
There it is.
And that's when the door opens, because now it's just who's going to make the first move.
There it is.
Who's going to say something? Who's going to make an inappropriate gesture? Who's going to test the waters and see how open and willing you are to do something, because you're both married.
Absolutely. Stephen even says desiring other people has an effect on your relationship, whether you cheat or not. And that's absolutely right. Because a lot of times that cheating is happening in your mind, right? And that can cause you to break away from your spouse, though something hasn't physically happened. That's why we call it an emotional affair. Emotions are intangible. They're not, you can't touch an emotion, but an emotion has an impact and an influence on the rest of your life. And so that's why you got to guard your heart and guard your mind to make sure that you stay in a safe place.
Another sign things are inappropriate or going south is that you begin to have conflicts with your spouse about the friendship.
Pause right there. If your spouse has a problem with a friend, I don't care whether you think they're insecure or not, it's a problem. If this is your primary relationship, then nothing should get in the way, nothing should compete with it, nothing should compromise it, nothing should cause this thing to deteriorate. And a lot of times we have more of an allegiance to our friends than we do our own spouse. It's a problem, guys. It's a problem.
It leads to this. You hide interactions with your friends from your spouse. For example, there's a church get together and you telling them, look, don't smile at me or don't say anything to me at the picnic because I just don't want them. I mean, we ain't doing nothing, but I just don't want no drama. So please don't even come my way. Avoid us at the picnic. That right there, hiding the friendship, trying to be sneaky about it, opening another door.
That's what we call corporate dating. All right, listen, we're going to go out with this group. I'm going to be over here. You're going to be over there. We know what's up, but we're not going to put it out there. But we're using this opportunity to spend some social time together. So when we talk, just act normal. Don't be giving me no looks. Don't be suggestive in your language because my wife is going to be with me and I don't want to tip her off. And so that's what happened. Listen, don't you know that there are couples who will invite other couples into their world. And some people are having affairs and bring the couple closer in. I want you to be friends with her. I think you two would get along. Meanwhile, you're secretly engaged in an affair with that very person. That's like a double, triple betrayal because not only did you didn't do it in secret, you did it in plain sight and gave me the impression that there was nothing going on and it was happening right up under my nose. So these are the challenges that happen with these relationships.
I like what Kathy says here. It says, I think it all depends on the person. If you are a weak-minded or your flesh is weak, you can get into trouble. I agree with that in many respects. I mean, there are certain personality types that I'm thinking of that have certain weaknesses as it relates to inappropriate relationships with opposite sex. However, even if you are strong-minded, I think it's best to set those boundaries, right? Because we don't want to get weak. We can be strong today and weak tomorrow. That's the thing, right? We don't understand how we can be one way. You just think about lifting weights, right? Like if I'm on it for 6 months, I'm gonna be strong. But let me sit down on that couch. Let me get a few bags of potato chips and a few hoagies. I'm a Jersey girl. Then you will see that I will weaken. And that's the same way with our emotions, our mindset, everything. So why test the waters? Why put ourselves in these dangerous situations? Instead, set boundaries, turn inward to your spouse and focus on developing that. And then you're going to win.
There it is. Guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. I hope you're getting something out of this topic. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Hey guys, we're back. And once again, if you're just joining us, we are the Couples Academy Show. And every single morning we come to you to give you some great content. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We've been talking about emotionally charged friendships. This is part of our series that we're doing, Overcoming Infidelity Complexities. Now, you may have a topic, you may have a subject matter you want us to discuss. Use this platform. Include it in the chat, because you never know. That may be the very thing that we talk about the next day. Now, listen, we want you to be a part of this movement. We want you to take a role by sharing, by subscribing, by liking, by getting the word out there, because this is a tool. There are many people all over the world who connect with us. And so this is their source of information and inspiration to take their relationship to the next level. So guys, we love you. Hope to see you tomorrow for another great episode. Take care.
Can't bring us down. Can't nothing bring us down. Our love is too high. Bring us down. Can't nothing bring us down. Bring us